We are introduced to the enigma that is Tom Bombadil in the Fellowship of the Ring, and even in a world of wondrous things and spectacular creatures, the strangeness of Tom Bombadil has confounded readers for more than half a century. Hello and welcome to The Broken Sword. Today we are looking at the main question of whether Tom Bombadil could have stood toe to toe with Sauron himself.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
So as I said, in today's video we intend to look at the difference between the power wielded by Sauron, the Dark Lord, and that of Tom Bombadil, the Master. We intend to learn what we can and admit what we do not know, or could not know, as we go along. First of all, to understand that Tom Bombadil has any power, it is important first to understand that in the world of The Lord of the Rings, the planet is alive with forces of nature, both malevolent and kind, as well as those unconcerned entirely with the world of men, elves, dwarves, or anything else at all. There are protective spirits and foul creatures alike that inhabit the lands, and when the hobbits arrive at the house of Tom Bombadil, they are still near their home. Yet we learn, even on the borders of the peaceful Shire, the spirits are restless. The Old Forest borders Buckland on one side, with the Brandywine River on Buckland's other side. In fact, the readers learn that Frodo's mother drowned in the Brandywine in this chapter, which hints at the staying power it has on the reader. This revelation of Frodo's traumatic past is juxtaposed by what many believe to be a prophetic dream while asleep in the house of Tom Bombadil, which makes the visit something like that of a vision quest for the hobbits who enter in as different people than those who would leave, changed forever by the experience. Tom's larger-than-life belly and personality enchants the hobbits, and in the process allows Tolkien to resurrect an older character of whom he was fond enough to bring him into a story that sees him as a relic of a previous era. No longer in touch with the wide world, though he claims to be firstborn and fatherless. We see the difference between power and strength, might and magic, and this allows for the homeliness and ordered peace of Tom's larger-than-life personality to charm the hobbits, and in the process allow for Tolkien's celebration of nature, friendship, and good ale too. The world in which our characters live is a world that is alive with spirits of nature, of incarnate spirits and power. Some of them abide in the unseen or invisible world, others inhabit the physical world, while some like to go between both. The Nazgul, for example, have different forms in one than the other, but what it is that has always struck readers about Tom is how he interacts with the One Ring. He takes it in hand, slips it on his finger, and is quickly bored with it. He does not turn invisible, though when Frodo becomes suspicious the rings may have been switched, when he puts it on, he does indeed disappear to all but Tom, who sees him as though he is in the spirit world and tells him to take the ring off and come back inside. The weather has been bad, and they will remain indoors and learn of all things Old Man Willow and the evil that seems to encroach on the free peoples of Middle-earth. What does all this mean for the question in hand though? How do we make heads or tails of what we have? When Peter Jackson's popular film trilogy cut the character, it was not seen as so bad by the majority of fans who might not have otherwise liked some of the character changes, like with those of maybe Frodo or Denethor, for example. The reason is that Tom has always stood out because he was not original to the story, instead ported over from existing work to imbue this great work of craft with some of his life. In this world, magic and nature are so intertwined that Tolkien wrote Treebeard as a symbol of nature, that when pushed too far, begins to strike back. As it may even be a hint why Treebeard does seem to get a line or two of Tom's in the Peter Jackson trilogy.
Gnawing, biting, breaking, hacking, burning. Destroyers and usurpers.
And magic is so tied up in nature that Tolkien wrote of Tom and how he would survive in a world of Sauron's design. Treebeard is part of the magical, living world which works to oppose the corrupt forces arrayed against them, and on one side is goodness, and the other that of greed and corruption. For all purposes, the magic wielded in this world is of nature, not supernatural, but preternatural. Something that is wholly alive and enjoying to the utmost every second, as though it were as precious as the One Ring could ever be, as though your homely cottage is as great as the keep of kings. And since he is a creature of nature, he is firstborn and without father. Though his power is unobtrusive, it is what distinguishes Tolkien's understanding of strength versus might and wisdom to know which is which. At the Council of Elrond, an elf named Erestor, a chief counsellor of Elrond, puts it forth that Tom Bombadil might have power over the ring. Gandalf responds in the negative, however, but is not dismissive of Tom entirely. "No, I should not put it so," said Gandalf. "Say rather that the ring has no power over him. He is his own master, but he cannot alter the ring itself, nor break its power over others." And later, after the subject of Bombadil defying the ring is discussed more, Gandalf says, "Could that power be defied by Bombadil alone? I think not. I think that in the end, if all else is conquered, Bombadil will fall, last as he was first, and then night will come." Though Tom Bombadil comforts and warms the hobbits, and shelters them, being that of Frodo, Sam, Merry and Pippin, Tom talks of cities with them which rose and fell, where the ruins are haunted by Barrow Wights, which gets a shudder from those listeners, and also of importance is Frodo's dream inside Tom Bombadil's home, which suggests the mystical, if ultimately natural magic at play in Tom's home and spirit. He tells our hobbit friends such wonderful tales of Old Man Willow, and when Frodo tries to ask Tom who he is, Tom responds simply with, "Eldest. That's what I am. The oldest of all, older than everything else in Middle-earth, and he remembers a time before the likes of Sauron." What gives credibility to some of the more popular theories about Tom is how he handles the corrupting influence of the One Ring by simply putting it on, notably not turning invisible, and then simply taking it off. He spins the ring about in the air and then makes the ring itself disappear. Then he smiles and gives it back to Frodo. It makes it hard not to love him, and we love him for the very reason we have given such a detailed prologue on what might happen in a physical confrontation between Tom and Sauron. First, despite what I just said, it would not be a physical confrontation at the end of the day, though the conflict would have physical implications as much for both as the endless contesting of Sauron's will that in the end undid the greatness of the man Denethor, whose film and literary depictions are such that one is unrecognisable from the other. Denethor held the seat of the House of the Stewards faithfully, and was right to suspect that Aragorn had an eye for the throne. But for many years, the contest of wills of Denethor and Sauron wore him down, but few men ever so greatly contested Sauron's will, as we see it is not something often managed. It makes more sense that Tom would be left out, as it is a moment that is particularly literary in its mode and its style, and not all direct translations from page to screen work as well as we would like them to, which has left a vacuum that has been filled with innumerable theories on what Tom is, whether or not he is Eru himself, or a representative of the Valar, or even Aule and Yavanna, the Valar in guise of Tom and Goldberry living and enjoying life in the middle of their creation. A major theme of The Lord of the Rings is that of strength being found, along with that of courage and bravery, in the most unlikely places. Tom's power is seemingly confirmed when he is discussed at the Council of Elrond, when Erestor puts forward the idea of Tom Bombadil challenging Sauron. His might is here discussed. This matter does seem to get settled though, and the comments in the end are, Tom Bombadil would give, and that no one person could oppose Sauron. Yet at the council, when considering the strength of Tom, all on the council concede upon degrees the relative strength of Tom Bombadil and that of Sauron. A warrior and fell spirit whose defeat is so costly it is very hard to ever call them victories. The losses are always too numerous, too great, but Sauron fights only for himself, and this gives the advantage to the diverse and very different persons who come together in the company that is for a time known as the Fellowship of the Ring. Tom Bombadil is considered seriously at Rivendell, but ultimately dismissed, and it's like that Tolkien would have us do likewise. Numerous theories have come and gone over time, but in all his true nature, whether unknown or not, is recognised as one of great antiquity, perhaps a being who has forever existed, hints at power that Sauron might not possess. Here though is the catch-22. Tom's power is that of perseverance, the protection of living things against decay, and he is a powerful symbol of creation. Much like the fertility gods you see in the myths from which we know Tolkien took inspiration, such as the Prose Edda and Poetic Edda, two great chronicles of Norse myths. Tolkien often complained that his homeland had no equivalent body of literary myth and legend compared to that of the older world like Rome and Greece, and his stories and innumerable starts and stops show us how great his vision truly was. And is more like than not, Tom was meant to be a representative of an undying kindness that is the gift of music and of Eru, as the world was therein created by the most glorious music of all. And Tom is as cheering unto men to fortify their hearts to goodness as Sauron will have men hearken to evil. That is his power, yet, as we've said, it is not one that will permit the use of force. The most powerful characters in the world of Tolkien are those who wield great power without giving in to the false promise of force, that by its usage anything can be improved. Strength of arms is not the equal of strength of character, and the forces that show courage true and deeds the wise recognize as just and fair. Then they are defined by their actions. With Sauron, despite once being of the choir of angelic beings whose great themes of music brought life into being, he was a traitor to Aule the Smith when he turned coat and joined the ranks of Malkor. He may have thought he planned to heal and free Middle-earth, but realistically, he delighted in cruelty and inflicting a fear on his prisoners, delighting in the psychological torture of them. Tom, though, was without a father, as the flowers may not have flowers, but the magic of their creation is a power beyond that of destruction. Tom is an embodiment of goodness, and we can believe that goodness has existed since there were people who lived close to kin and their fellows and developed those bonds, first of kinship and of friendship, and fellow citizens of one city or another. And part of the larger argument of Tolkien's work is that nature and the mechanisms of power by which the world is ordered by God is the only power which is without contest. It is perhaps possible Tom was just an eccentric, good-hearted fellow with a habitual liking for tall tales. While the hobbits wait out the storm, he tells them one story after another, and is clearly a master storyteller. Our four hobbit friends are held in thrall, gasping and reacting at just the right times during the story as Tom goes on and on. Frodo has a prophetic dream while he sleeps in Tom's house, and it may be the natural, mystical forces in play and at war with the other. The reason for this strangeness could be that Tolkien is reusing a character from an older work, a character he could not otherwise let go of, as Tolkien said himself. In historical fact, I put him in because I had already invented him independently. He first appeared in the Oxford magazine, and wanted an adventure on the way. But I kept him in, and as he was, because he represents certain things otherwise left out. What might be less well known is that when Tolkien thought of ideas for a sequel to The Hobbit, we might well have gotten a fight between Sauron and Bombadil, as Tolkien considered making Tom the hero of the book, but this would never be. We would get the publication of The Adventures of Tom Bombadil though, and that was in 1961 after the massive success of The Lord of the Rings. And what readers may be guilty of doing here is expecting everything they have since learned about the Legendarium, and as it existed when Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings, were completely different in construction and the history of Middle-earth, the creation of Middle-earth, and Morgoth's Ring, which show us the labours he undertook to ensure that the Silmarillion could be consistent with the later work. And it's possible that the continuity does not perfectly hold, and that Tom was just simply an Easter egg for The Lord of the Rings alone. As the speculation grew and found its way to Tolkien, in that same letter as a moment ago, he responded with this. As for Tom Bombadil, I really do think you are being too serious, besides missing the point. Again, the words used are by Goldberry and Tom, not me as a commentator. Perhaps Tom would not be able to fight Sauron in single combat, because he is too strong to use force. He also would not need to fight alone, and that's the point. It is such that he would not have to do so while Sauron must, by the nature of his power, fight alone, as even the most loyal of his servants hate him and long for his downfall, while the forces arrayed against him, natural and spiritual, seen and unseen, have much more on their side than strength. And in Tolkien's world, the plot armor of being good of heart is a greater sign of power than the gauntlets about the mailed and metal-covered figure of Sauron the Dark Lord, who would destroy and consume the world in the machine of industry and make it so beings like Tom Bombadil would not be able to exist. Tolkien in fact wrote in another of his letters, "Ultimately, only the victory of the West will allow Bombadil to continue, or even to survive. Nothing would be left for him in the world of Sauron." We may as well address too. It is also possible, I guess, that he is one of the Maiar, servants to the Valar of which we know not all are named. If so, this would in theory merely put him on the level with Sauron, and would not explain how he can be both older than the world and fatherless, nor the rest of this enigma, as it is much better thus. The moment the secret should be revealed, the bloom of the rose would be lost. So with that, if Sauron and Tom Bombadil would ever come to fight, who would truly win this duel of powers? After going over everything that we have today, as much as Tom Bombadil appears to be a power of powers, an enigma to those evil and tainting things in the world, Tom is not a fighter in the same way Sauron is. The likeliness of a one-on-one matchup to rival that would-be fight between Tolkas and Morgoth is almost an impossible situation. Tom would defend his lands and keep the natural beauty, but he would not be able to prevent the spread of the shadow and poison that would come from the hands of Sauron. It would destroy his lands, destroy his home, and in the end, he would just simply stop being Tom. A being such as he had no greater worry than tending to the trees and rivers that grew around his home. Yes, he could chase off a Barrow Wight with a song, but besting a Barrow Wight that has been placed there by the Witch King of Angmar does not exactly mean he could do similar to the greatest of the Maiar. So as much as Tom Bombadil is an amusing character, with him not being essential enough to appear in adaptations, maybe that speaks out about his ability to truly defeat the Dark Lord, unless maybe he could find the ultimate song to scare Sauron away. Yes, Tolkien did for a time consider making Tom the hero, potentially meaning he did have the power, but at the end of the day, he didn't do this. Tom is far more likely to either stay in his home with Goldberry until there is no home left, or find some beautiful green corner of Middle-earth that Sauron did not reach. Either way though, I feel that Sauron would win this battle in the end. But to end this off, we cannot have a Tom Bombadil themed video without hearing his famous chorus. Old Tom Bombadil is a merry fellow. Bright blue his jacket is, and his boots are yellow. None has ever caught him yet, for Tom he is the master. His songs are stronger songs, and his feet are faster. And so with that, now it is time for my question of the day, which is, how do you think the fight would go? I may have beaten around the bush a little in this video, but it is a complex topic, so please let me know all of your thoughts and opinions on this in the comment section below. And now to shout out our patrons. You guys are amazing in supporting our short film project, and I cannot thank you all enough. The Divine Power tier members of Kevin and Abram, the Fire Demon tier members of Nashith, Denversteel and Gregory, and the Wizard Staff tier members of John, Andrew, Jennifer and Hunter. Every single one of you is a true legend of the Brohirrim. Finally, if you have managed to reach the very end of this video with me today, and you are enjoying what you see on the channel, please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon too, so that you can know when all future uploads will go up. And so, thank you for spending just some of your time with me today, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.